Ontario has some of the best freshwater cruising in the world, and when most people hear that, they think of the Great Lakes and some of the other major waterways. Because of that, those places get pretty busy with boaters. But there's a lesser-known lake smack dab on the border of Quebec and Ontario that offers something completely different without sacrificing all the key amenities like marinas, great accommodations, and excellent restaurants around the way. Welcome to Lake Temiskaming.
Whenever I get this close to La Belle Province, the only things on my mind are cheese curds, gravy, and French fries. And I know from a lot of experience that you can get some pretty good poutine in eastern and northern Ontario. But I've come all the way up here to answer the age-old question of who has the better poutine, Ontario or Quebec. Trace the Ottawa River north past Mattawa, and a dam at the town of Temiskaming, Quebec marks the southern tip of Lake Temiskaming, a widening of the river little more than 5 miles across at its widest point. Lake Temiskaming straddles the provincial border for 68 miles, over 100 kilometers, and at its most northwestern point, we find the town of New Liskeard in the community of Temiskaming Shores, my home port for this poutine pursuit. The New Liskeard Waterfront Marina has 75 slips for permanent and transient boaters with gas and pump-out services and a free launch ramp. That's where I'll park my ride for the trip. Courtesy of our friends at Gordon Bay Marine, it's a 2021 Bayliner DX2000 outboard that will henceforth be known as the Gravy Boat.
I know deck boats aren't necessarily the best looking boats on the water, but they are some of the most practical, with the spaciousness of a pontoon and more of the feel of a fiberglass boat. What I do really like is that Bayliner has done a pretty good job of making nice sleek lines to give this a little sportier look than your typical deck boat. With a moderate V hull, this thing planes nice and easy. A little bit of bow rise and it's right up on plane in just a few seconds. There's a little bit of patter in rough water, but otherwise this thing rides pretty nice. And the big squared off bow and windshield are great for keeping you high and dry in a little bit of chop.
The DX2000 is rated for up to 180 horsepower. Mine has a tried, tested, and true Mercury 4-stroke 150 hanging off the back, which will be great for getting up and down this long body of water. If I had friends, this would be an excellent setup. The squared-off bow gives plenty of room for seating up front, with storage under each cushion and a reboarding ladder on the nose, which is covered in non-skid. There's a huge ski locker in the floor between the consoles, plus a sizable dry compartment in front of the co-captain and an open tray on the top. Wraparound L-shaped seating in the cockpit hides compartments under each seat, the aft one being a self-draining live well, and a flip-up cushion on the port side shows a good space for a cooler to sit. There's also a removable backrest that can be placed in a couple different spots to create a spotter's chair for skiers or tubers. A stern walkthrough has another big storage compartment in the floor, right next to a beautiful big sun pad with a sticky pad for valuables and a tilting backrest. And with outboard power, you get the added bonus of the cavernous storage compartment underneath. You do lose a bit on the swim platform, but our Gravy Boat still has a pair of good-sized platforms with a telescoping ladder to starboard. The helm features a bolstered bucket seat and well-laid-out gauges, and just in front of it, a pouch with USB power to hold and charge your phone. An armrest would be nice for the long ride, but I'll suck it up. Eyes on the prize. Just steps from the Waterfront Marina is the Waterfront Inn, a small hotel on the beach looking right down the length of Lake Temiskaming. A great place to stay the night if you aren't sleeping aboard.
And this is Ms. Claybell, a giant Holstein cow who grazes here on the side of Highway 11 to greet anybody driving into Temiskaming Shores. She's a symbol of the importance of agriculture in this region of the province and an utterly excellent ambassador for the region.
A little further up the road is another landmark and further evidence of that agricultural heritage.
We've been making cheese in this area since 1940. All the milk comes from our farmers here in this local Temiskaming region, about a 20-kilometer radius, and all our cheese is made by hand. We make everything from fresh curds and cheddar blocks to artisanal style cheeses such as Blues, Breeze.
Up here in Northern Ontario, they know a thing or two about poutines, so I had to ask Lace, what makes a good curd for the classic French-Canadian dish?
It has to be squeaky. You don't want it to completely melt in your poutine with the hot gravy, but it's gotta be warm, soft, and squeak, for sure. Definitely check out 28 on the Lake. They have a great patio, and they make a poutine with Thornlow cheese curds.
Hey, what do you know? That's right in my hotel. One poutine to go, please.
There's nothing much more Canadian than a good poutine. Despite what they may think on this shore, on that shore is the place where this great dish was invented. So I've gassed up this brand new DX2000, and I'm headed into La Belle Province to find out once and for all who makes the best poutine.
Ontario or Quebec?
Vogue. It means the prevailing style or fashion at a particular time. And some things that are always in style are luxury, performance, and fun. And Princecraft's top-of-the-line Vogue pontoon series has them in spades. This is the 2021 Vogue 25 RL.
The 25 is the second largest in the Vogue line, which ranges from 23 to 27 feet. Its overall length is actually closer to 26 feet at 25 feet 11 inches, with an 8-foot 6-inch beam and a dry weight of 3,224 pounds with the performance configuration like our test model, which makes it faster, more powerful, and a dream to drive. It's a great size for a pontoon, not too heavy to tow with a half-ton, but big enough to fit up to 13 people in amazing comfort.
On a top-of-the-line pontoon boat, you're expecting a certain amount of luxury, and Princecraft has been delivering on that since the Vogue line was introduced almost a decade ago. The raised logos, the ultra-plush upholstery, the LED accenting, the molded-in dock lights, but my favorite thing is probably this APS sidewall, which puts panels on both sides of the fencing to really give it a nice, clean look all the way around. One of the most important things on any pontoon boat is the furniture on board, and that goes double for a boat called the Vogue. You better have nice and comfortable seating, and with the Sport Edition, we've got these great big high backrests that wrap right around this bow to really seal it in, make it a nice and cozy feel, almost like you're sitting in your living room. This is how a pontoon boat is supposed to feel. With the active trim, I just hit the throttle and it levels out so quickly. There's almost no bow rise whatsoever when you're planning with this boat. The performance configuration is so smooth. The third log for that stability, you've got the underdeck spray shield, the lifting strakes. This is like riding around in a VIP lounge.
It also gives you hydraulic steering and allows you to up your power to a nasty 450 horsepower engine, which honestly might not be necessary because the 300 on our test model had me loving life.
If you're bringing 11 people on board a pontoon boat like this, it goes without saying that you need tons of storage. And in every one of these benches up front, including this removable middle seat, it's roto-molded storage with a sunken lip to keep your gear nice and dry. In the backrest, we've got storage right to the floor on the port side and an integrated garbage can to starboard.
The middle seat at the bow comes right out to open up some space or give access to one of 3 entry points on the boat. The beautiful black pearl snack table is wider for 2021, but it folds down to take up less space, and it too can be taken out and moved to the stern for the perfect little dinette layout.
The helm on this Vogue 25 RL is as close to that of a car as I've ever seen on a boat. From the shape of the dash, this nice raised foot platform, right to this super comfy captain's seat. This is a really ergonomic layout. This year they've gone with dual flush mount LCD screens built right into the dash, so instead of our typical gauges, we've got the Mercury vessel view just in front of the wheel, and on the right is a second, bigger Simrad screen. And what they've done with that is tilted it as much as they can towards the driver to really cut down on glare and also just make it a little bit easier, more ergonomic to look at while you're underway.
Rounding out the features on the dash are a USB and auxiliary port, cell phone holder with wireless charging, and light-up LED push-button switches for systems and accessories. And inside the console is a large storage compartment accessed through a side door.
Now, the performance configuration isn't just about speed and handling, it's also about practicality. So with that, you also get a massive 49-gallon gas tank and this giant in-floor storage compartment, all thanks to that third log running up the middle. The RL in Vogue 25 RL comes from the rear lounger, but like everything else on the Vogue, it's really taken up a notch on this boat.
It can be configured in a bunch of different ways. Backrest aft for a forward-facing seat, forward for an aft-facing seat, all the way down for a full-size daybed, plus there are 2 backrests that pop up to add a couple more options. And inside that lounger are 3 separate compartments. At the stern, a self-draining cooler and battery access. In the middle, a privacy enclosure that can be optioned with a head. And forward is another huge storage compartment. Sealing it all in is a stainless steel railing that folds down or pops back up to give you a bit of added safety while running. and it adds a beautiful aesthetic next to the stainless steel tow bar and reboarding ladder on the giant swim platform.
And even at speed, I can pitch this thing on its side, and it is so stable. Perfectly level all through the turns. This is a really impressive ride. I don't know if pontoons were ever supposed to go this fast, but I sure am glad they do. This thing rips. Pull out and we are cruising, and there's 50 miles an hour top speed. Woo!
What a fun boat to drive, and almost just as much fun to look at. The Vogue 25RL ain't going out of style anytime soon.
Pat, what are we up to next?
We're going to install a stern thruster on this boat.
Sideshift has a new model that bolts to the cavitation plate on the lower unit of an outdrive or even an outboard engine.
No holes below the waterline. The only 2 holes for this mount are going to be on the transom, well above the waterline, and that's just to bring the cables inside the boat.
One nice thing about mounting above the cavitation plate, once on plane, the entire thruster will be out of the water, which means it won't add drag at higher speeds. Using the mounting plate as a template, drill 4 3/8-inch holes, making sure to keep rearmost holes at least a ½ an inch inside the back edge of the cavitation plate. Also make sure the thruster plate is not sitting on top of the anode bolt.
Here's a little trick for you. If you get a ratchet type or closed end, box end, 9/16 wrench, I put a little tape on one side, puts the bolt inside of it like that. I slide that down inside, drop my bolt into place, and tighten it.
Be sure to apply the provided Permatex thread lock to the inside of the holes and the bolt threads. This will help prevent against corrosion.
Because this is aluminum and this is aluminum and this is stainless steel, we like to put a little coating of thread lock as a galvanic protection so that we don't get corrosion inside. It's going to just migrate itself in between everything. Then I'm going to take my nut, which I've already put the Loctite into, put a 9/16 on it. We've got a nice coating in there to protect the nut and protect the corrosion from happening in there. Now that the cavitation plate is on and secure, I'm going to mount the thruster. Now you're going to see the way the thruster comes. The anodes that we have here, we like to install this unit so that the anodes are on the inside and all the cabling is going up the right-hand side or the starboard side of the boat. Well, I've already been to the engine compartment. I've made sure that there's nothing there in my way. I'm drilling my holes.
At this point, before drilling the transom, it's a good idea to double-check your holes will be above the waterline. Sideshift also provides a flexible cable cover to help protect the cables attached to the drive, which you cut to length and slide over the cables before pushing them through the holes in the transom. Leave enough clearance to compensate for movement of the motor or drive from side to side and up and down. Then, secure the cables to the drive with the provided Velcro tape. Don't forget to seal the holes with Sikaflex. When finished, your external cables should look something like this. You can usually use the engine starting batteries to power the stern thruster. Just double check they have enough cold cranking amps. Determine an appropriate location for the motor controller, fuse, battery switch, and wireless receiver. Ideally close to the thruster battery to help keep the big, expensive cables as short as possible, but also within reach of the thruster cables we poked through the transom earlier. The instruction manual is incredibly helpful for both bow and stern installs. It's a good idea to use ties to keep the cables organized and zip tie the spare fuse to the cable near the fuse holder. If you do need it one day, it will be easy to find. The receiver is next and is connected exactly the same as the bow thruster, with all 5 leads connected to the motor controller. The other end of the harness plugs into the receiver, which then gets mounted with Velcro to the bulkhead. Flip the battery switch on and the LED voltmeter should light up, and the red LED on the receiver should start flashing. Now, just like the bow receiver, once paired to the joystick, it will turn a solid red. All that's left is to test propeller rotation with the remote fob.
And it is going in the right direction.
With both thruster props turning the right way, it was time to drop the little Regal in the water and try it out. After a little quick instruction, we wanted to capture Vanessa's first impressions.
You've owned this boat for how many years? How long have you owned it?
Last year I got it.
Is it your first boat?
Yes. I've never boated before.
How was it parking the first couple times?
It was absolutely awful. I had to move docks because I had a hard time docking it by myself.
So yeah, just try spinning it.
Oh, Oh, cool. And then I could go the other way too?
Any way you want.
Oh, there it goes. Look at me going in. Oh, wow.
This wouldn't be as much fun if it was calm.
No, it's so true. I think you needed the wind to really get the full experience of what it actually can do. It literally just made boating so much easier. Like, this is so cool. I can't believe it. Like, I'm in shock right now. This is too cool. I would have avoided this area of the marina at all costs before this.
You want to come back here? I want to show you something.
Okay.
There's another little accessory. Remote lanyard.
You're kidding.
You can operate your thrusters from the back of the boat.
Are you serious?
Go ahead, give it a shot.
Oh, wow. Easiest docking ever.
Welcome back to Lake Temiskaming in northern Ontario. This natural border which separates Ontario from Quebec is our playground today as we seek to answer the age-old question: who has the better poutine, Ontario or Quebec? We started our quest for the best in New Liskeard on the northwest tip of Temiskaming Shores. From there, we headed down the lake towards our most southern destination in Quebec, La Bannock, a local waterfront restaurant which apparently has authentic Quebec poutine.
Boating in the shoulder season is great because you often have the lake all to yourself, but you do have to take what you can get weather-wise, especially way up here in northern Ontario. We're getting a little bit of rain today, but we got a big bimini, and I came up here to boat on Lake Temiskaming and eat some poutine. And I got a full tank of gas and an empty stomach, so we're pushing on.
The rain did slow us down, but it gave us a chance to visit a few more waterfront destinations along the way. Heading south, we stopped in Haileybury on the western side of Lake Temiskaming in Ontario.
This is Haileybury, one of the few towns that makes up Temiskaming Shores, where you can stop in, get some gas, get a pump out, take a shower, or, like we're doing, wait for a little bit of rain to pass over, walk into town, have a bite to eat.
The upside about boating late in the season is the peace and quiet. The downside is the peace and quiet, because many tourist-based destinations are closed for the season. Not a big deal for us, though, as our poutine mission was pretty straightforward. While waiting for the rain to subside, we stumbled upon a sign which piqued my interest. As it turns out, Haileybury was home to writer Charles Leslie McFarlane, who penned many of the early Hardy Boys novels under the alias Franklin W. Dixon. He would later return to the Great White North to continue writing under his own name. Novels such as A Kid of Haileybury and an autobiography, The Ghost of the Hardy Boys, helped put this little town on the map. Haileybury was also met with tragedy, as the Great Fire of 1922 destroyed over 90% of the town, killing 11 residents, leaving 3,500 people homeless. It's been called one of the 10 worst natural disasters in Canadian history. The rain was beginning to let up, so we headed back out on the water. Due south of Haileybury are the massive cliffs of Devil's Rock.
This is incredible, though. You're not gonna catch me going into one of those tunnels. Pretty impressive.
We decided to push on, but planned to return to Devil's Rock on our return trip. For now, we continued southwest towards La Belle Province. Once we passed the Narrows on the south end of the lake, a slight turn east landed us on the shores of Quebec. It's here where we would find out once and for all who has the best poutine. La Bannock is a small resort with cottage rentals and a restaurant just steps away from a sandy shoreline. It's here where we would fulfill our challenge.
Since 1968, La Bannock has sat here overlooking the south basin of Lake Temiskaming, and it is a beautiful view. You know, poutine was invented in Quebec, maybe perfected by Ontarians. I don't know. All I know is I think this is how it was meant to be eaten, overlooking the beautiful south basin of Lake Temiskaming, Ontario on one side, Quebec on the other, and a beautiful bowl of cheesy goodness right in the middle. Oh, look at that. Quebec, I think you still own the poutine.
With our bellies now full of Quebec's finest, we began a leisurely cruise back north towards New Liskeard. Needing to burn a few calories, we stopped in to hike Devil's Rock for a bird's-eye view of Lake Temiskaming. There are docks at Buck Park Campground, which is where the trailhead begins our ascent.
The natural rock formation is called Devil's Rock. It descends under the water by 800 feet, but it also goes up over top of the water by at least 800 feet. and it's one of the most spectacular views in Northern Ontario that you'd find. The trail to it has been used for close to 1,000 years or more by the indigenous population of the area. The view is worth 45-minute walk, no problem.
The hike started out a little wet, but it felt good to be burning off some of that top-quality poutine. While the weather has not been cooperative on this trip, we have to take the good with the bad. Not sure if this is the food talking or not, but the hike has slowed me down enough to reflect on our little adventure. Doesn't matter what kind of boat you have, as long as you're boating. It's simply a vessel to help transport us from one place to another. How you get there is up to you. In our case, that little Bayliner DX2000 has helped open my eyes to what Northern Ontario has to offer. I can honestly say I have never been this close to cliffs that large before. Our cameras do this no justice. This area truly is spectacular and should be on any boater's bucket list.
This is insane.